everybody, Striker on in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the more influential people in my life. This is actually an episode of Striker's Life. Hey, look at that, the series is back. Yes, I don't forget about things. I am stupid, but not that dumb. Anyway, so for all of you that have new to Striker's Life, or you don't know what Striker's Life is, Striker's Life is where I cover, where I cover my own life. And I talk about it, give like some insight on what I grew up in, so you guys have an idea of more of the commentator that you watch gameplays of and talk to a lot. So without further ado, let's jump into today's video, which is the most influential people in my life. When I was growing up, I didn't have a father figure. I'm not going to get into that, but I did not have one, to say the least. And I was growing up in a single-parent household, so the only person I really had to look up to was my mom. However, I was very, very lucky because my great-grandparents owned the house, and my uncle and cousins lived very, very close. So I always had some family to reach out to. And one of those people that I found was quite influential to me was my older cousin named Speedy Lagger, as he's known on YouTube, or Robert. Let's just say that he was always, I guess you could say he was always there for me. He was he wasn't so much there for me as he was just there to help me. And I had a question, he normally would have an answer for it. And I looked up to him because he was a very smart person. He wasn't like a dumb person or an idiotic person. He was a very smart, very, I guess you could say, I don't know, intellectual. He was very, very interesting, and I always looked up to him. I also looked up to my mother. My mother was a big part of my life, mainly due to the fact that I had no father, so I had to look up to someone, and she was the mother figure that I kind of looked up to. But in terms of father figures, I did have someone to look up to, I guess you could say, more or less, and that would have to be my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather is probably the most influential person I have ever, like, the biggest influence on my life. He's may have worked me to the bone during summer, or for most summers, but I'm 100% fine with that because he is an amazing man, and he's taught me things that I would have never learned had I not worked with him, had I not had the experience with him. And sometimes I feel bad because I'm not spending time with him, and I really want to because he's an amazing person, and he deserves all of the time, and he deserves essentially all of my time. But I do realize that there is school and stuff, and that does get in the way. But he is probably the most influential person. When I was growing up, as I stated before, my mom was always in and out of relationships, stuff like that, but I'm not talking about that in today's video. But my grandparents were always, my great-grandparents, because he's actually my great-grandfather, Rugrat. He is my great-grandfather, and he would always look out for me. He'd always be there for me and my sister and my brother, and he was always that source of, I guess you could say, inspiration for me. He was a hard worker, always believed in getting stuff done, and he was never a lazy person. A lot of people, when they get older, they tend to get lazier. He was not lazy at all. He was very active, very into work, and he still is to this day, and I looked up to him a lot because he was that one guy that was the only person in my life, I guess you could say, who was a father figure or a role model, because all I really had growing up was him, a couple uncles here and there, and my mom, and on occasion my mom's couple boyfriends. So I really looked up to him, and I recently worked a lot with him, and I got to know him more and more personally than I did previous, which was good because I got to see him as what he is, and a truly nice man. And it's kind of brought me into this conclusion of thinking that I've had very few people, I guess you could say, in my life who I could look up to. I just haven't had a lot of people to look up to. I've had myself, essentially, and that's just about it. I've always kind of had my mom, but in terms of father figures, I've always been in this extreme lack of. Only recently has my mom gotten married, and, well, yeah, I'm not going to try to get into that. But I did had my cousin I grew up with, and I had my couple uncles, but my great-grandfather, he definitely had the biggest impact. He taught me how to work tools. Previous to that, I never knew how to work tools. He didn't teach me to shave. I learned that on my own. I learned certain things like that on my own. But he did teach me how to work tools. He taught me that I should always put work first, as in like working on school and stuff, and that education is probably the best thing. He taught me that there is that I should always be myself and not be others, which was nice. And he was always there for me. And what I got from him was many different things, but the main thing that I got from him was that I should work hard towards my goals if I want to reach my goals, and don't stop working until I reach that goal. As for my cousin, older cousin I mentioned earlier, he was the early influence for me because I had, as stated before, no father figure, and he was the only kind of male person around that was constantly around me. He helped me growing up. He taught me things, more educational things, and he kind of, I guess you could say, opened my eyes to the wonders of education. Previous to me talking with him, I kind of liked school, but I always thought there was like no purpose to it. But he told me, believe me, man, there's a purpose. One day if you don't have all this, one day you're going to be kind of stuck in a gutter. And he kind of just pushed me to learn what I wanted. Another person that was extremely influential is my Uncle Jimmy. Now, he's not my actual uncle, but that's something that completely goes beyond it. In a time where it was hard for me to learn, and in times where I have questions, my Uncle Jimmy is always there. He is essentially I guess you could say my ultimate friend. He's been around for a long, long time, and we've always had like this, I guess you could say, connection, because we've always done things, like not so much together as we've just done things, and we're really connectable. The only really bad thing about my Uncle Jimmy is he's a bit lazy, but he's a very smart individual. He's also very, very kind. He's not so much on the aggressive side of things. Sure, he makes funny jokes here and there, but he's more of a kind person. And he really, really likes to play video games, so instantly that he's my best friend. But he's always kind of been there for me, always talking to me, and I've always tried to initiate conversations with him because he's had some pretty interesting values and morals and stuff like that. And he always has something interesting to say, and he was also there when I was growing up. There are tons of other people I could list that kind of helped me, but those are just some of the big people. So to recap on today's video of Striker's life, I'm going to quickly tell you some of the influential people that were in my life. Let's start off with my mom. My mom helped me was always there for me even when I was sad, and is still there for me to this day, and I thank her for it beyond any. I can't stress enough how much I thank her for it. My Uncle Jimmy, he helped me through a lot of stuff. I just previously went over him. My great-grandfather, Rugrat, and my cousin, Speedy Lager. Those were probably the most influential people of my life. That's all for today's video. If you did enjoy, please hit like and subscribe. I'm sorry I'm bad at outros, so I'm going to try and keep this one quick. And without further ado, bye.
Huh. Well, guess we're worthy now.